Before we dive into where to travel in 2026 and what to know, first let me introduce properly two members of the WendyPerrin.com team. First of all, Brooke Wilkinson. Brooke is in Northern California right now, as you can see, not covered in snow. Many of you already know Brooke because she helps answer your many travel questions when you write to questions at WendyPerrin.com, and she helps connect you with the right trip planner for your specific trip goals. Yes, she is that famous Brooke, and she's traveled to more than 50 countries. She's been on many wow trips. She and I used to work together at Condé Nast Traveler magazine many years ago. And then I brought her to WendyPerrin.com, and we couldn't be more thrilled. She's on the team. Brooke, take it away.
Hi, everyone. So glad to see a lot of familiar names among our attendees today. Great to have you all here and welcome. And if you're new to us, just a quick explanation. WendyPerrin.com is a website that helps you plan trips in a couple different ways. We're journalists who write articles about travel, many of which we'll reference today. But we're also travel matchmakers, I like to say, connecting travelers with experts who plan private, custom tailored trips. Many of those planners are on our WOW list of trusted travel experts, which you'll find in the menu bar on our website. And when you contact those experts via our site, we guide you through our unique WOW approach to travel planning, designed to avoid common pitfalls and get you the best trip possible. Plus, we offer a personalized trip recommendation service via our Ask Wendy questionnaire, also in the black menu bar on the site. Back to you, Wendy.
Okay, well, thank you, Brooke. Let me also introduce you all to Nichole Bernier, who is coming to us from Connecticut. Nichole and I also worked together at Condé Nast Traveler for years. Um, Nichole's got a large family. She loves traveling on her bike. That's the speed she likes to go. Biking, it covers more ground than walking, but it's slower than a train. The perfect speed for absorbing new places. Anyway, Nichole, please say hi to everybody.
Hi, everyone. It's so great to be here and so great to see you all. I have a number of roles within the website. I track new nonstop flights so everyone can be better aware of where they can get easier and faster. And I help to write the newsletters and the articles that you read on the site. I'd like to start off by mentioning a few housekeeping details for us today. First, I'd like you to ask you to make sure to open up the Q&A box in Zoom. That's where you type your questions in, and we will try to answer as many of them as possible. If we don't get to your question tonight, you can email it to us at questions@WendyPerrin.com. You can also watch that Q&A box for useful links to articles and other resources, which our team members, Flory and Christine, will be dropping in throughout the hour. Wendy, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Nichole. Okay, so let's get started. First, I want to share an overview of where people will be traveling in 2026. These are the top countries for WOW list travelers for this year. Number one is Italy. Number two is Japan. After that, New Zealand, France, the United Kingdom, and I think by now you can see the whole list in the Q&A box of the most popular countries for WOW trips this year. Um, so the rest of a lot of you want to know, I mean, it's important to think about what's popular right now, but I think what most of you want to know is where can I go that's not so popular right now? What is under the radar? A lot of you, there were certain common themes to the questions that you sent in before this talk, and a lot of you asked, where should you go now before it changes? And my personal little theory about how to figure out where to go when is that every destination kind of has a cycle that it goes through. You know, places they go through a period of development. So there are places that don't quite have enough infrastructure yet, but then they start getting new flights and building more hotels, and they build up enough infrastructure so that the luxury hotels start coming in and you have all the creature comforts, but you want to hit those places at exactly the right moment where they have not become overdeveloped yet and like assaulted by mass tourism, right? So we look for places that don't quite yet have nonstop flights, but they might get one soon. Places that haven't built a cable car yet, places that the cruise ships are not stopping at yet. They're like at that perfect moment of haven't quite been discovered yet. Go there now and beat everybody else to it. There was one place I told you all about a year and a half ago, Malta, an island in the Mediterranean that is just magical. And hopefully in the Q&A box, there will be a link to the article I wrote about Malta. It was actually my third trip to Malta, if you can believe it. It's a small island, but it has so much that's special about it. Um, Lo and behold, soon after I got back, they announced there's going to be a nonstop flight. It's starting in June from New York. So try to get there before everyone starts coming on that nonstop flight. And they're building new hotels in Malta. There's going to be like a Six Senses on the island of Camino in 2027. Um, Other Mediterranean islands, another one that just got its first nonstop flight this year is Sardinia, the Italian island. That was very, very popular last year. A couple of years ago, the most popular island was Sicily because of all of the White Lotus. You know, After that show came on the air, everyone wanted to go to Sicily. It's kind of now being overtaken by Sardinia. But they're about to start a nonstop flight there too. So keep that in mind. There are under the radar countries in Europe, like Slovenia, for instance. Slovenia is so gorgeous and full of, I mean, Ljubljana, the capital, is like this fun college town, and Lake Bled is this just breathtaking. The country has gorgeous scenery and lovely people. That's an example of an under the radar country in Europe. But there are also under the radar pockets of countries. For instance, Portugal has been very, very popular. Everyone's been going to Portugal. But and on all these new flights, all these new hotels and restaurants in Portugal, but you can still find these less developed, emptier, fabulous places such as the Alentejo region. I was there this past March. The Azores, the islands in the Atlantic. And of course, in Asia, there are many, many under the radar gems. Just as a couple of examples, Sri Lanka is just an enchanting island. And, a lot of people don't think about it. They think about India, but Sri Lanka is one of those under the radar places to put on your list. I'm just back from Indonesia, where we went, and this past fall, my husband and I went and, you know, traveled to Borneo and Komodo and some of the lesser known places. And Raja Ampat is an area that is very emerging as like the scuba diving destination and the place to go for amazing undersea life. Now, in the very popular countries, as I say, like Italy and France, which are always super popular, there are still secret spots. Um, they have under the radar, like even the big cities, the cultural capitals, and the cruise ship hubs that are crowded with tourists, they still have neighborhoods and hidden villages and places that I mean, even in the big cities like Rome. When I was there last, yes, you'd be at the Trevi Fountain and there would be just like wall to wall. You couldn't move for all the people, but you walk 10 minutes away and the streets are empty. So it's just a matter of kind of getting away from the main tourist drags. Um, we should have a link in the Q&A box to an article we've got on Secrets of Europe, the spots most travelers miss. So take a look at that. A few off the top of my head, in Italy, everyone's always asking for Tuscany. You might want to think Umbria. Tuscany is just so often so full of tourists. Umbria is kind of like a less discovered Tuscany. The Amalfi Coast, you've all heard of that. That also is charming and beautiful, but that can get very crowded in season. An alternative to that is Puglia, also in southern Italy, but just a little bit to the east. For the Mediterranean area, think about small islands that are under the radar. Like, for instance, everyone's talking about Mallorca, one of the islands off the coast of Spain in the Mediterranean. People talk about Mallorca, but what about Menorca, which is another of the Balearic Islands? It's not as discovered. Um, Italy, as I said before, a lot of people immediately think of Sicily, and Sicily is amazing. But it also, if unless you time it right, it's very popular. But what about the Aeolian Islands, which are right off of Sicily, and they're so charming, and people aren't thinking about going there. And Greece, everyone talks about Santorini and Mykonos. Yes, those are amazing, but it can be just as beautiful and charming on islands like Corfu or Kefalonia. Um, and another place I love in Europe that is so often overlooked is Romania. There are, and Bucharest itself, that can get crowded with a lot of tourists. But if you go to the countryside into Transylvania, I know people, they think of Transylvania and they think of Count Dracula, but Transylvania is one of the most charming, rural, blissfully empty, historic, uh, magical places that you will ever find. In fact, the person who knows all about Transylvania is King Charles, because he has houses there. He knows how special it is. In our Europe talk tomorrow, you'll hear about secret spots like this all over the continent. So please join us tomorrow for our Europe, where we'll have wow list experts from Europe joining us. I just want to mention a couple of other common themes to the questions that you submitted before this Zoom. One of you asked a question, what happened to shoulder season? That is an excellent question. So the pandemic changed travel seasonality. It made peak season longer. People couldn't get in June, July, August, right? After the pandemic when everybody was trying to travel again. So now peak season is easily May through September, if not April through October in Europe. So what happened is more people are traveling in low season, and there's a lot more happening in low season. Hotels that used to shut down at the end of October, they're staying open through December, like on Lake Como, for instance, in Italy. And my advice to you all is for much of Mediterranean Europe, think November and March. November, like Thanksgiving. Um, think Italy for Thanksgiving, or if you want Christmas markets, think Austria, right? Because they start right at the same time that Thanksgiving break starts. Last March, I was in Spain and Portugal, and it was really lovely. Um, so now for islands in Europe and in the Mediterranean, the season's a little shorter. You want to think more April through May and October, because things will shut down after that. One last common theme to all of your questions that I want to address before I hand things over to Brooke is some of you are concerned about Americans not being welcome these days in certain parts of the world. Like there was, you know, early last year, there was, worry that Canada, um, they're not going to like us anymore. Mexico, now Denmark, parts of Europe, people are nervous about like feeling not welcome or anti-American sentiment. And I just want to tell you that actually, well, we've got a great article that hopefully will go into the Q&A box on how to ensure a warm welcome when you travel internationally. I don't think you need to worry about it. Certainly not if you work with a wow list expert. But here's why. People around the world, they understand the difference between individual people and their government's policies or actions. Like many people I have spoken to in many countries all over the world complain about their government's actions. That's just like the norm. And they understand that whatever the government policies, like there's a big difference between a government and the individual people living in that country. And everyone realizes that. And also the trip planners that we recommend specifically choose places and hotels and experiences that are warm and welcoming, where they know you are going to get such a strong welcome. In fact, you're going to be treated like royalty. We have not gotten one single trip review from anyone saying they didn't feel welcome anywhere. Not just Europe, I mean, Latin America, Asia, all over. Our travelers are typically surprised by how friendly everyone is to them during their trip and how warmly they're welcomed. And that's because, wow list trip planners introduce the travelers to their friends and their trusted contacts and the people who are, again, so warm and welcoming. Like that's who you'll be working with, and they're used to preventing any negative situations. Anyway, I just wanted to address some of your most common questions that you asked. And now let me hand it over to Brooke to answer other questions.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Wendy. And just to add one note to Wendy's last point, and some of you may be wondering, are people traveling right now with the current geopolitical situation? I've tried to plan two trips for this coming summer, one to Canada, one to Brazil, both places where political relations with the US are not the warmest right now. And in both cases, I've come up against lodges that are already sold out for my preferred dates and are pretty much booked up all summer long. So there are a lot of people out there still traveling and booking trips. One thing, another theme among the questions that we received before this Zoom, many of you asked us which places will provide top value for your dollar in 2026. So there are two ways that I look at this. One is the perennially good value destinations, and the other is places where the US dollar is relatively strong right now. Now, the places that fall into the first category, some examples are Ecuador, Portugal, Eastern Europe has always been, long been great value for dollar, Southeast Asia, and Central America. When you're thinking about the latter category, where the US dollar is strong, keep in mind that the dollar has weakened against many of the major currencies, like the euro and the pound. So your dollar won't go as far in countries that use those currencies. But there are still places where the dollar is relatively strong. Some of these include Turkey, Egypt, Canada and Mexico, Brazil, Peru, and Argentina. And surprisingly, Japan is expensive right now because it's just hugely popular and in really high demand. But at the moment, the yen is weaker than it's been recently. And so costs on the ground, we're hearing, are lower than what you might expect. Wendy also talked about some of her favorite kind of hidden gem under the radar destinations, and I'll add a few of my favorites as well in Latin America and Asia. There's a new luxury tented camp I have my eye on in southern Peru called Tinajani. It's between Cusco and Lake Titicaca in a beautiful canyon with dramatic rock formations. Peru is one of those places where everyone knows the iconic site, right? Go to see Machu Picchu, and I've been twice, and no one should miss Machu Picchu. But there are so many hidden gems sprinkled throughout the country, and that's true in many countries around the world. Elsewhere in South America, Uruguay has been popular among in the know South Americans for quite some time, but it's now emerging as a destination for US travelers. Personally, I'm excited to spend time this summer in a part of Brazil that few travelers get to, the Pantanal, which is where a place to go for jaguar spotting. Jaguars are making a comeback in the wild there, which is really exciting. In Central America, I've been hearing great things about Panama and Guatemala. Our travelers are loving Panama and are really surprised. Again, it's like you think the canal, but there's so much more beyond the canal. Charming Panama City, Old Town, and also beaches and islands and a wonderful Caribbean experience there. Guatemala gets rave reviews. Moving over to Asia, hikers, something I love to do when I'm traveling, hikers should think about Korea, where a new trail called the Dongsa Trail will start opening in 2026. It's one of those through trails modeled on things like Spain's Camino de Santiago, Japan's Kumano Kodo, so a long multi-hundred-mile trail. You can hike just parts of it. And so that's just starting operations in later on this year. Laos is also one of my all-time favorite destinations. It's a beautiful, less visited country with such warm people. I really loved my time there. One other thing, as you may know, next week the Winter Olympics will kick off in northern Italy. And people tend to associate the Olympic Games with crowds, right? Northern Italy will certainly be crowded in the next couple of weeks in early February during the games. But we've seen time and again that travelers actually avoid places well after they've hosted the Olympic Games. So this coming spring, summer, and fall will actually be a smart time to see Northern Italy when everything is still buffed and shined from all that pre-Olympics prep. There are new hotels that have opened and older ones that have been renovated, including a new Aman property. And those Olympic preparations aren't just up in the mountains where a lot of the events are happening, but also in Milan, revitalizing parts of the city there as well. Another sporting event to keep in mind is the World Cup, not just if you're a soccer fan, but know that it's happening in June and July across North America. So there are 11 cities in the United States that are hosting games, three in Mexico and two in Canada. So if you're not going to see a soccer match, you probably want to avoid those places during those game dates, but also know if you're flying out of a city that's a host to some of the World Cup, that's probably going to increase airfares for all of the fans coming in. So keep that in mind. Wendy mentioned the White Lotus. I'm betting that many of you are fans, as am I, kind of a guilty pleasure. And every season that show creates a travel boom in whatever location it's decided to film. And I'm hearing rumors that the next season will be in the French Riviera and maybe a bit in Paris as well. So if you've been wanting to visit the French Riviera and haven't quite gotten there, go now before that season comes out, probably next year, and everyone starts flocking there. One last note that I want to leave you all with on kind of more the logistics side. A lot of us travel with portable power banks, like the little batteries that you can use to charge your phone when you're on the go and using your phone all day long sightseeing to get directions and take photos and videos. It's really handy to have. But a lot of airlines are putting more and more restrictions on how you can store those portable batteries and whether or not you can use them on board on your flight. So we've got an article that I think will go in the Q&A box with more details about that, and just make sure to know the regulations for whatever carrier you're flying before you get to the airport. Nichole, would you like to share some of your trends this year?
I would love to. So, one of the things that I am kind of addicted to is tracking what airlines are having what new direct flights, nonstop flights from the US to different parts around the world. And it's not just because it makes it faster and easier to get there, but it's also interesting because you're kind of getting a preview of the places that the airlines are saying, I think this is a hot spot and I think this is a place that's worth banking on and keeping an eye on. So, this year we're seeing a major expansion of routes to Europe, and it's making it faster and easier to get to these places this year. Travelers will be able to fly from Newark to Santiago to Compostela in Spain, which really reflects an increasing interest in trips related to active travel and spiritual journeys. As Wendy mentioned earlier, the Mediterranean islands of Malta and Sardinia are ready for their moment, and they will be easier to reach than ever before with a new nonstop from New York. And so will Bari, Italy, with a new flight from Newark, serving as the gateway to Puglia. And from Northern California, we're going to be seeing San Francisco connecting to Warsaw in Poland, which will be the first time that San Francisco connects nonstop to that part of Central Europe. Beyond Europe, we're seeing debuts like the route from Los Angeles to Casablanca, which is the first time the West Coast connects nonstop to Africa. It's being introduced partly to meet the interest generated by FIFA, the World Cup, but it's expected to continue on afterwards. In Atlanta, we're seeing another interesting first. It's going to be a nonstop flight to Riyadh, which will be the first direct flight to Saudi Arabia by any U.S. airline. And that's going to align with some new hotel development there that I'll tell you about in a minute. Some other new international routes that we're seeing for 2026, from Boston to Barcelona and Madrid and Nice, from New York to Edinburgh, Scotland, and to Porto in Portugal, from Newark to Seoul, Korea, and to Split in Croatia, from London to London, from Seattle and St. Louis, to Rome, from Houston and Seattle, to Milan, from Miami, to Paris, from Las Vegas, from Philadelphia to Budapest and to Prague, where interestingly, some of the old town landmarks are being converted into luxury hotels this year. And this year, for the first time, Michelin just started expanding into rating the restaurants there. So we keep an eye on up-to-date nonstop flights, as we've mentioned. So just look at the link that we've got in the Q&A box, and you can always go there to see what the latest flights are from your location. Just a few thoughts on the hotel front. When you look at where new hotels are being built, it tells you not just where there's a nice new place to stay, it tells you what new places to keep your eye on and is gaining momentum as an up-and-coming place to visit. So in Saudi Arabia, like I mentioned, the cultural and desert oasis of Al Ula is ramping up its luxury hotel developments like the Shiran Resort in the Shiran Nature Reserve. This is a part of Saudi Arabia's tourism program for its Vision 2030, which is also fueling hotel growth along the Red Sea, like the Triple Bay, Amala, and Six Senses, both going in there. Built in the protected cove of a natural reserve with limestone caves, and it's opening in phases starting this year. On the Greek island of Paros. It's known for gorgeous dunes and beaches and whitewashed villages. We hear people requesting it because it's a quieter alternative to Santorini and Mykonos. Paros also has the fishing ports and the fashionable restaurants and the nightlife and the bustling harbor, but it's kind of a more laid back sophistication. And we have the Lura Cliff Resort opening there this year, and the Vione just opened with the largest spa on the island. In Portugal, we have Melides. It's known for tranquil dunes and beaches. It's not as well known as the Algarve to the south, but it's really drawing some new hotel projects. La Na Praia resort is opening this spring between the ocean and a wild nature reserve just north of Comporta. And so is Vermelho Lagoa, a new property from Christian Louboutin's hotel, spa, and villa complex. In Panama, we're seeing the Chiriquí province, 300 miles southwest of Panama City along the Pacific. It's really emerged sort of as a castaway kind of escape, and it's seeing a wave of eco lodges and small boutique properties. And in Panama's Bocas del Toro, we see the Viceroy opening later this year as well. In Japan, we've spoken a little bit about Japan. The Setouchi region is a scenic coastal area in western Japan, and it's sort of known as the Mediterranean of Japan for its mild climate and islands and citrus fruit. It's where the art island of Naoshima is, and it's also an area for a popular cycling route. Over the next 3 years, Mandarin Oriental is opening a trio of boutique hotels around that area, including an intimate 22-room modern ryokan style property on Naoshima Island. Okay, back to you, Brooke.
Thanks, Nichole. So we got a lot of questions from those of you who signed up ahead of time, and we'll start with those, and then feel free to continue putting questions in the Q&A box, and we're going to try to get to as many as we can in the second half of our chat today. Wendy, I'm going to ask you about the first one. You mentioned the Amalfi Coast earlier. Is there a quieter way to stay with fantastic views? One of our travelers asked.
Yes, so I love Ravello, which is a lot of, so Positano and Sorrento, yes, those can get very crowded. Farther east along the Amalfi Coast is Ravello, which has amazing sort of clifftop views. There are many cute little pockets other than that along the Amalfi Coast too. But the main thing I want to say is, folks, take a private boat. The most quiet place with the best views you can be is on a boat sailing along the coastline. That's the way the Amalfi Coast is meant to be seen. It was created and built centuries ago before there were any cars or highways or gridlock. So see it by boat.
Great. Wendy, we also have a traveler who's looking for a post-college grad trip for the family that is about a week and international. I know you've got a couple, one college grad and one soon-to-be grad in your family.
Yes, and my college grad wanted to do his graduation trip with his friends. So they all went to Japan and China and assorted Asian countries, the whole fraternity. Mom and dad got left behind. Anyway, so if I feel like it all depends on what interests your child. I mean, what it is they studied in school, what languages are interesting to them. We've got so many travelers book graduation trips, like wow graduation trips through our system, that we've got a whole big compilation of reviews from people who just got back from graduation trips and what they did that was really exciting for that grad, like in terms of maybe they were interested in marine biology, maybe they studied governmental relations, whatever it is. I feel like a trip catering to that academic interest is always a hit. Or their career, whatever that's going to be. But I also just want to add that of all the trips that my kids and that our family of four has ever taken, our favorite, and I would want to do it again. And this is what, I mean, if you're looking for a trip that's going to make everybody happy, it's renting a goulette, getting a yacht along the coast of Turkey. Um, we did it. It was like one of these, we did it sort of still during the pandemic because it was one of these COVID safe things you could do. Um, and it's wonderful in that May, June timeframe when so many people are doing graduation trips. And everyone can do what they want to do on the boat. If it gets too hot, you just jump into the water. You stop wherever you want along the coastline. You see these amazing ancient ruins. And then you end up in Istanbul afterward, and it's such a mix of East and West, and it's such a cosmopolitan city. You just it's so eye-opening. Like you learn so much about the whole world doing this kind of trip, while it's also really fun and everybody can go at their own pace and relax too. So those are some ideas.
And I see that this traveler, Jennifer, added in our Q&A box that she's particularly interested, or her graduating senior is interested in the Caribbean. But she
Oh,
wants something easy to get to, but not too big. Belize comes to mind, and yacht charters are certainly available there as well.
and also all that Panama. I mean, that's on the
Mhm.
Caribbean too. I mean, it's not one of the tiny Caribbean islands, but it's so interesting. It's got like more biodiversity than most countries. And Panama's fascinating and beautiful and has all these new hotels. So it might be good value for your dollar too.
Yeah, yeah. We had another traveler, Anne, ask, will Americans need a visa to travel to Europe this year? So you may have heard something like this. It's not actually a visa. It's a travel authorization. It's called ETIAS, ETIAS. It's set to launch in the fourth quarter of 2026. It should be very easy to the process is quite easy. It's not like a whole visa application process. It should take just a few minutes, although they're saying you should probably sign up, start the process about 2 weeks ahead of time when it launches. It will last for 3 years or until your passport expires, and it will cost about $20. So once you do it for one trip, every time you go back to the EU, you'll still have that travel authorization. We'll put a link in the Q&A box of an article where we have some more information about that, and we'll update that article once they announce the official launch date and other information. Wendy, here's another question for you. When is a great time of year, and what part of Spain is ideal to visit?
Okay, so there are so many amazing parts of Spain. I mean, you could spend a year in Spain and still be fascinated and not see everything. I happen to love, I love like Andalusia, that whole part of southern Spain that just has it's where Granada and the Alhambra Palace are, and it's just so rich in history and beauty as well. And it's also great in the winter months. I mean, you could go in February. I once took my family, my kids, when they were 5 and 6 years old, to that part of Spain for February break. We went skiing in the Sierra Nevada there. We also went to the White Villages. It was orange harvest season. So, I mean, there was so much fun that was going on. So we even did in February, but in March, you're really assured of nice weather in that part of southern Spain, but not the crowds yet. And so I think for friendly people and nice weather, and also Portugal is right nearby, I think that would work well for time of year, ideal place to visit if you really want to focus on just one place and also friendly people.
Yeah, yeah. We also had another question, best places to spend a winter few months for a convivial senior age solo woman. So that sounds like that part of the Iberian Peninsula is a great answer there too. Nichole, as our flights guru, here's a question for you. Are there direct flights to destinations from Boston, and when is it generally best to book?
Great question. It's also, I think you're probably also asking me that because I was a Boston person for 20 years up until a few months ago. So Boston is definitely my home hub for flying in and out. I did a quick look right before today's webinar just to see how many direct flights there are nonstops going out of Boston. And there are 23 different locations that you can fly to internationally from Boston right now. And that's including the three that we mentioned earlier, Barcelona, Madrid, and Nice. It also includes three different places in Portugal that you can fly into. And in Ireland, it's both Dublin and Shannon. You can go to Reykjavik nonstop from Boston and Istanbul. So you really, it's kind of a question of where can't you fly? And if it doesn't have a direct, nonstop flight, it could usually be done in just another quick hop from there. In terms of when to book, it really comes down to keeping an eye on what the fares are and staying on top of that and doing your homework. It used to be long ago that you can you'd have to do it within a certain window of time and you'd get more bargains if you do it at a certain time. That's not really the way it is anymore. And now it's more of a matter of setting up like a Google tracker online and tracking what the airfares are for your flights. And you can kind of see them trending. It'll go up a little bit and down a little bit. And if you see it trending down, just grab it. So if you put on a search, you can kind of see how your flight prices are trending and just, grab them when you can. That seems to be the way that I've found the best deals.
Thanks. Wendy, another attendee asks, strategies for maximizing value when the exchange rate isn't great. So places like where, euro and pound countries. What are your best strategies there?
Right. So my number one way when I'm in that situation is I do what the locals do. I buy where they buy. I shop where they shop. I buy what they buy. Like what I mean is like for instance, if it's really expensive to eat a nice meal, go to the local store. Grocery stores are fascinating. And there are all different kinds. I mean, yes, there are like little delis, but there are also for takeaway, but there are also, like in London, which is a very expensive city right now. I was there last summer. Um, you can go to Harrods to the food hall and get takeout. I mean, my point is that takeout food for like having a picnic when the weather is nice. There's a lot of really interesting, fun gourmet stuff available, easy to get, and I just feel like that's a big way to get great value when the exchange rate isn't good because you're still getting so much local flavor, like literally. Um, and of course, but that's for people who really are on a tight budget. If you're not on such a tight budget and you want luxury, honestly, the best way is using a wow list expert for your trip because they have all the connections. They've negotiated better rates with the hotels. They can, uh, that's the best way to maximize like what you're going to get for your dollar spent.
A traveler asked, what are the best places to see the Northern Lights this year? Well, you may be asking, as you may know, that it's right now the peak of one of the solar cycles. So the Northern Lights are a product of these storms that happen on the sun. And they go in multi-year, decade-long cycles of peaks and valleys. And we just kind of are coming off one of those peaks. So the Northern Lights are at their most impressive now this winter and still will be next year as well, because it is such a long, 10-year cycle, as I said. So this is a great time to go see the Northern Lights if that's on your list. And Norway is the place where our travelers have had the best luck seeing the Northern Lights. A little town in Alta seems to be the key spot. It has to do with the microclimates in that area because chances are there are three kind of different microclimates near Alta, and you have a good shot of at least one of them being clear on any given night, which is one of the requirements, of course. If you have cloudy skies, you're not going to see the Northern Lights, even if they're up there. We have a couple articles about the Northern Lights, which Flori has put into the Q&A box. So check those. And it's also possible to see the Northern Lights in Northern Canada, sometimes in Alaska, parts of Iceland and Finland, but there's a lot more information on the site through those links. Wendy, I know you're a big fan of the Christmas markets in Europe, and we got a couple different questions about them. What are the best, least crowded Christmas markets? Someone asks. Another person wanted to know, do I use one wow list expert for a multiple country Christmas market tour?
Okay, so yes, there sometimes yes, it's definitely you can use one expert if you're combining certain countries. It all depends on which countries you want to include and which parts of which countries. The best thing to do is just go to the website and click on Ask Wendy and ask us, and we'll let you know what makes the most sense for you given your particular trip goals and needs. But so I'm a huge Christmas, I've been to a lot of Christmas markets in Europe. They're so much fun because they're just a completely like old-fashioned small town. It's none of the sort of like crass commercialism of Christmas. It's like going back in time and it's going to these lovely town squares and drinking glühwein and eating kritoshkalash, which is like it's Hungarian. It's like steaming hot chimney cake. It's and but here's what I want to say. The question was, what are the best, least crowded Christmas markets? Actually, they're not that. You want to go to the most popular Christmas markets. You really do, because that is where the most is going on. You've got the greatest assortment of food and vendors and, artisans who've made all sorts of homemade things. It's great for Christmas shopping. Um, and a few of I mean, if I had to choose one country to go to the Christmas market, I would choose Austria probably, because Vienna. Okay, so Vienna is an example. There are a whole bunch of Christmas markets in Vienna. None of them are too crowded because there are so many of them all near each other. But they're so much fun. There's so much going on there. All the choral concerts and the just a lot of fun outdoor events. But Germany is also amazing. One of my favorite Christmas markets is in Regensburg. It's at the Palais Turnum Taxis, which is this ancient castle with amazing artisans and homemade. It's just such a magical atmosphere. So anyway, if you're interested in Christmas markets, write to us because we'd love to help you find just the right ones for you.
Nichole, Joy asked best destinations in March and June.
So I think the best way to answer that, because really there's so many places that you can go that even if the weather is not optimal, there are things that you can do that are fantastic in that place at that time. We actually have a feature on our website that is fantastic for exactly this purpose. If you go to our Where to Go When series of articles, you go to the black navigation bar, you drop down under travelers reviews, and you click there. It has two columns of articles for each month of the year. And one column is our experts and our travel experts regionally have weighed in on what they think are the best places to go for each month. And then we have a column that goes alongside of it where our travelers have written to us telling us the stories of where they've gone and had fantastic experiences. We update these all the time. And one of the things that's especially fun, I think, for us to see come in is a review of a place that you would never have thought would be so fantastic at that time of year, and it is. So I'd really encourage you to go to the website, drop down, and just cruise around and have a look and see what other places people have discovered for these months.
Yeah, I use those articles all the time myself. Wendy, we have a traveler who asked about small beach towns in Croatia and islands, I guess, near Puglia and Bari. And can you combine the two, Croatia and Italy, by ferry or other transportation?
Yes, there are ferries crossing the Adriatic between Croatia and Italy. There are a whole bunch of them. I myself have taken the overnight ferry. I don't recommend it, but I've taken it from Split, Croatia to Ancona, Italy. But there are many ways to get across the Adriatic. Um, some quick, some slow. Um, but one thing I just want to um, you may want to combine Italy and Croatia, the Adriatic coast of each. But let me just tell you, if you try to do that in 1 week, you are going to miss so much. There are so many little beach towns and hidden villages and fun things to do and so much more than you think. I mean, like going to Croatia, it's not just, oh, I'm going to spend 2 days in Dubrovnik and 2 days in Split and 2 days in Rovine, and then I will have seen everything. Like, no, it doesn't work that way. There are so many little hidden coves and beaches where the locals go and ancient harbors and you want to be able to relax and enjoy them and soak up the atmosphere. Go out at night and just sit in the cafe for 3 hours and talk to the people at the table next to you and see what's going on in the evening in these places. So don't bite off more than you can chew when combining Italy and Croatia. That's my advice.
Nichole, here's an interesting question. What are the places most people never think of going to that they really should?
So that's another one of those interesting questions that you could answer any given way. And it depends on what the time of year is. And it really depends on what you're looking for. I mean, no matter where you are going, there are the places that everyone goes in that place. And then there are the places that are sort of the hidden gems in that place that you really wouldn't know about unless you kind of ask around and look for them. And that's why we publish on our website two things. One is a feature called the Secret Hideaways of Europe, Secret Destinations of Europe. Another is in every single insider's guide that we have. We ask our travel experts, what do you think the hidden gem is in your destination? And they tell us. And that's in every one of our locations that we cover. And that's why we put it in, because there's so many places that people just don't know about. And they're right there under your nose.
I want to make sure we get to some of the questions. There are a lot of them coming into the Q&A box. So Kelly asks, where's a great place to go for a newbie to international travel aside from Mexico and Canada? Either of you feel free to jump in.
So I assume Kelly has been to Canada and Mexico, maybe, and is just looking for an,
Yeah.
I mean, it sort of depends on I'm not sure where Kelly is based, so I don't know which is more convenient, going sort of like across the Atlantic or across the Pacific. But I would recommend, I mean, I just feel like everybody should experience, England, France, Italy. There's so much, of course, in South America, but I just feel like for a newbie to travel, I mean, how can you not experience Italy? I mean, everyone loves Italy. It's probably the most popular country in the world. So I just feel like that's got to be on your list.
A different part of the world, and kind of a different end of the spectrum of travel. Grayson asks, what's your take on visits to the Central Asian countries, the stans? Wendy, I know you've spent time in Uzbekistan.
Okay, so yes, our family went to Uzbekistan when the kids were in high school, and we loved it. We spent 2 weeks there, and I mean, so yeah, I guess we could have gone to other stands, but 2 weeks was like barely enough time for just one of them. I wouldn't have wanted to miss anything. But yes, you can certainly combine them. I know many, many people who combine, you know, even all five stands. But what I love so much about the Silk Road was just in Uzbekistan, especially Khiva, Bukhara, Samarkand. Oh my gosh. I mean, these mystical, magical Silk Road cities where you walk around and it feels like you're being transported backward in time. So that's my suggestion.
Very cool. Debbie points out an easy flight from Boston, as when we were talking about that, is Amsterdam, but Amsterdam's crowded. So she wants to know, what's your take on skipping Amsterdam and visiting Ghent, Antwerp, The Hague for a week?
Sounds great to me. I mean, I wish we could put our Netherlands and Belgium reviews page up on in the Q&A box because so many people love going to Ghent and Antwerp, and they can spend 2 weeks just driving through Belgium and seeing and then taking the train. It's so close to get to various parts of the Netherlands. And I mean, you can fly into and out of Amsterdam or Brussels because there are so many flights there. You don't have to spend a lot of time there if you're worried it's going to be too crowded. If you really want to see Amsterdam when it's not as crowded, try going when it's not river cruise season. It's a big hub for river cruises. But if you go when the river cruises aren't operating, I mean, when I took my family to Amsterdam, it was Christmas, New Year's break. And that was a great time to experience it.
Karen says, I'm thinking about transport to under the radar locations. If we hire a private driver, what is the protocol for a multi-day trip? Does the passenger also then pay for the driver accommodation? We don't drive and actually prefer to use public transport. I do drive. I love to drive when I'm traveling in many places, but there are certain parts of the world where I just know it's going to be too much aggravation and headache and possible risk. And one thing that I've really enjoyed on trips that Wow List experts have set up for me is having a private driver who I immediately, you can tell kind of as soon as you get in the vehicle within 5 minutes that they're alert, they're safe, you're in good hands, and it's just like the stress lifts off your shoulders, and you know that you're going to be well taken care of. It really depends on the destination. Sometimes they end up driving back to their home each night and coming back and picking you up if it's an hour or two away. They might stay in a nearby hotel. That's all part of the trip cost. And often they speak a fair amount of English, and it's kind of fun to have that conversation. They're not always as fluent in English as a private guide would be, but I've had some really wonderful conversations with my drivers on road trips around the world. I don't know if Wendy or Nichole wants to add anything, but I really enjoy having private
Well, I
drivers.
just, I just think, I think I want to just add that they help you in ways you wouldn't have predicted that have nothing to do with driving. I mean, yes, they know the shortcuts. Yes, they know the parking lots. Yes, they can drop you off at one side of a site and pick you up at the other so you don't have to backtrack 30 minutes. But it's not just that. It's like if you've got young kids, they can nap in the car. The driver knows where to go to get them quick snacks. Let's say you need to hop out and take photos of something, the driver can watch the kids for you in the car while you're, I mean, it's just, there's so many other ways in which they can kind of take care of you and just make life a lot less stressful.
Curtis wants to know any special choices for domestic locations. We will be talking about the Americas on Wednesday, so I hope you can tune in again for that conversation. We'll have some U.S. experts with us that afternoon. But Wendy, I know you've done a lot of travel in the U.S. Any one or two places you want to highlight?
Oh my gosh, I don't know. You know, a lot of people, so a lot of people love the Southeast. You know, Charleston, Savannah, the islands along the coast of Georgia, right? I mean, like this is a big place people like to go to, but there's more that's great. I'll just mention, like off the top of my head, a couple of places you might not think about. In Alabama, um, I think a lot of people just kind of like skip over it, but there's Fairhope, Alabama is like and Mobile nearby. I mean, they're just really interesting places there. The little town of Daphne is like a little artist's village near Fairhope. Um, and also going north of that, Tennessee. You know, I've had to spend a lot of time in Nashville because my one of my children was in college there. And the little town of Franklin, Tennessee, like just 20 minutes from downtown Nashville. There are a lot of charming places in southern states. Just if you're driving around, Virginia is full of cute towns.
Yeah. And the
I feel like I need
California
to make a
coast.
plug for New England. The islands of New England are
Yes.
I think they're not exactly a secret, but they are really, really, really lovely. And Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket, Block Island, and of course Cape Cod, which is not really an island, but it's just a spectacular place to be. Um, Even off season, these are lovely places. And we've talked a bit about shoulder season and how it's becoming more and more popular. But there are wonderful places to go, and they tend to stay open longer now than they used to.
Yeah, and I'll also plug my own part of the country here in Northern California. The coastline is just gorgeous, and is newly reaccessible. Parts of Highway 1 have been closed for years due to mudslides, and it's just in the last couple of weeks that they've finally finished the work there and reopened. So you can now drive through Big Sur, for, going from San Francisco to Los Angeles or the other direction and go all the way along the coast, which is really spectacular. I also love going, I live near Napa and Sonoma wine country. I love going in the off season, as Nichole said. I go in January and the wineries are empty in the tasting rooms. That they're sitting there twiddling their thumbs and they're so happy when they have someone come in that they can pour a glass of wine for, versus going in, harvest season or in the summer when it's, six people behind the back, a line of six people at the bar waiting to get their glasses filled. Um,
And of course, there are national parks, and we're going to be talking about those a lot on Wednesday.
yeah. Moving back over to Europe, Wendy, Anne asks, what are the main towns to visit in the Algarve? Should one skip anything? Have thoughts about that?
Well, I was in the Algarve last March.
Mhm.
And again, one thing I would really suggest is a boat. We didn't have the chance to, we were very rushed. And we were actually staying at the Villa Vita Park, which is a lovely resort type hotel. And we actually were there, we were in the Algarve for Mardi Gras, for Carnival, on March 4th of last year, and went to little carnival celebrations in little towns you've never heard of. And it was actually a real blast. Um, but I would again, like if you're in the Algarve, I would really recommend taking a boat along the coast because those cliffs, it's just like the only way to see that view that's so beautiful.
And we have just a few minutes left. I want to talk about one part of the world we haven't really gotten to yet. One of our viewers asked, when is the best time to visit New Zealand? Wendy, I know that's one of your very favorite parts of the world.
Yeah, we're actually headed there next month. New Zealand is extremely popular, as you might, if you were here at the start of our talk, you know that it's the number three most popular place in the world right now. But New Zealand is one of my husband's and my favorite countries. He actually lived there for years. And I would say that the best timing, because it is so popular and there's a there are availability issues if you're going in peak season. So think about shoulder season, which would be sort of March and October, November, March, April. I think that's you definitely want to go at a time when you can do both islands. You want to experience both the North and the South Island. And so if you go during our summer, there's going to be snow, there's going to be skiing on the South Island. If you don't want that, you really want to go think about shoulder season, spring, fall. Um, because that's where when you can find enough availability or just book really far ahead.
Nichole, one last airline related question for you. Do you have a travel agency to recommend who can consistently get lower business class fares than on a major airline's own app? That's the holy grail, isn't it? An affordable business class airfare.
Right. Well, there's really there's a whole category of flyer of airlines called consolidators, and what they can do is get you a good deal on, usually a business class fare, because they buy them in bulk and they've got relationships with the airlines. Two that we've heard good things about are Skylux Travel and RN Grant. And one of the things that I think is still rare these days to find is that these aren't website booking engines and bots. These are real people. And you can get real people to help you with your travel arrangements and real people to help you 24/7 if you're running into a bind. So those are two sources that we found and that we've heard of our readers having.
Great. We're coming up on the end of the hour. Wendy, have you seen one last question maybe that you're dying to answer?
Oh my gosh, I'm looking at all these questions now that we haven't answered. I feel so bad. These are great questions. But wow. Well, okay, here's the question I'm looking at right now. Is Tbilisi and surrounds safe for Americans? I am dying to get to Tbilisi. That's in the Republic of Georgia. Um, a lot of people might think right now, I mean, because of the proximity to Russia, Ukraine, whatever. I keep hearing from people just coming back from Georgia saying that it was perfectly safe and it was so fascinating. The food's amazing, the wine's amazing, and I would go. I would not tomorrow because it's January, but but a couple of months from now, I would go. So I know that if you use a wow list expert, that's the thing. They always keep you safe. Not only safe, but you just feel, I mean, like everyone's so happy to see you. When you're traveling in places where uh where Americans are like, "Oh, I don't know, maybe it's not safe." And you're one of the few people there, everyone rolls out the red carpet. They just love, they're so welcoming. That's what happened to us in Uzbekistan. We were like the only Americans the entire time that we saw. We saw plenty of Europeans, but we were the only Americans. And we feel like we got special treatment, not just because we were in the hands of a wow list expert, but because we were sort of such a novelty. So I'd go, if that helps.
Well, if you didn't get your question answered today, write to questions@WendyPerrin.com and we can help you there.
Thank you, Brooke. Thank you so much. And thank you all so much for joining us today. As Brooke said, we're always at questions@WendyPerrin.com in case you would like any other advice, in case we didn't answer your question. And we will be sharing this Zoom recording in an article on the website, all of our Zoom recordings. So we'll let you know in our newsletter. Hopefully you all get the newsletter. If you don't, go to WendyPerrin.com, go to the top right where it says get our newsletter, click on it. It's free. It's completely free. It's twice a week. But it keeps you informed with what's going on that you need to know. And that's where we will share all of our articles and Zoom recordings answering all of these questions. And I hope we'll get to see you during the rest of Wow Week. We put a link in the Q&A box to all of our Wow Week travel talks with all of the details and how to RSVP. So we hope to see you later this week. And thank you again so much for joining us. Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Great
Happy
to see
travels.
you.